The fuck is this? Oh. I feel like a monkey doing this. Wearing my Akita shirt. We got Akita. This is like body horror. So it's like, that's why I'm wearing, you know, anime. Body horror, the subgenre that's all about mangling bodies, weird unnatural movements, and other things that I'm not allowed to visually show on YouTube without making the AI angry. Today we'll be taking a look at some of my favorite movies of the subgenre that possibly you haven't seen yet, or maybe you have. Or maybe you're curious about movies in the subgenre and want to learn more about them. So throughout this video, we'll even add in some ratings of things like how much gore is in the movies or how many jump scares there are, so then you can make an assumption on whether or not the movie fits what you're looking for, as well as where you can watch the movies on different streaming services that you might be signed up with. And as always, if there's other body horror movies you'd want to hear about or that you'd like to see in a future episode, please leave a comment down below so we can all become one cultured hive mind that feeds on the blood of the innocent. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to brood more evil energy. The first film we're going to be taking a look at is a remake that came out in 2018 called Suspiria.
I'm here. The one that's coming.
Honestly, I was not prepared with this movie's body horror effects because it's so different from what the original was, but man, does this movie slap. Suspiria from 1977 ranks high with a lot of horror fans, and so seeing something you love be remade can cause a loss of interest, especially when the two movies are visually drastically different when Dario Argento's Suspiria is so well known for its art direction. That being said, the remake deserves your attention even if you're a die-hard Suspiria fan. And if you're not a fan of the original or haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's about a woman named Susie, played by Dakota Johnson, who you might know from the 50 Shades of Grey franchise.
Find anal fisting.
I'm all ears.
Strike it out. Strike out vaginal fisting too.
You sure?
Yeah.
She leaves her family in Ohio to move to West Berlin in order to follow her dreams to audition for the Marcos Dance Company. During her arrival, another dancer named Patricia suddenly disappeared after claiming to her psychotherapist that the school was run by a coven of witches who worship the Three Mothers. This coincides with the original, although the name of the dance studio has changed and the introduction of the Three Mothers is actually represented in the film, unlike the 1977 counterpart. Dario Argento's Three Mothers trilogy is composed of Suspiria, Inferno, and the Mother of Tears. Suspiria is about Mater Suspiriorum, the Mother of Sighs. Inferno is about Mater Tenebrarum, the Mother of Darkness. And Mater Lacrimorum is the Mother of Tears. And then you have Mater from Cars. That's a terrible joke. That's horrible. Why did... A bazinga. It's nice to have the lore of the Three Mothers introduced in the 2018 remake because the original Argento trilogy just felt like the storyline was shoehorned in to create a loosely connected trilogy between his films. If I was Dario Argento, this is what happened. It's like, oh, look, Suspiria. Yeah, I'm gonna make a sequel called Inferno. Here you go. In fact, the writer of the 2018 remake, David Kazganich, stated that he's also not the biggest fan of the original. He thought that the movie had great art direction, but the narrative of the film barely made any sense to him. And he also wrote the screenplay for Bones and All, which just came out this year, and it's also directed by the same director of the Suspiria remake. So, go check that out. That's pretty cool. I've heard good things about Bones and All, I just haven't seen it yet. With Patricia gone, the dance studio has room for Susie to move in with her new roommate, Sarah, played by Mia Goth. This is one of Mia Goth's first big roles in the industry. Her first feature film debut was in 2013's Nymphomaniac Volume 2, directed by Lars von Trier, which was the movie that introduced Mia Goth to Shia LaBeouf. How that relationship works out, I have no fucking clue. You know, I actually remember watching volumes 1 and 2 of Nymphomaniac when it first came out, and man, those movies are fucking weird, bro. It's lots of sex. It's strange. During a rehearsal, another dancer named Olga breaks down and claims that the head mistresses of the school were responsible for Patricia's disappearance. She's whisked away while the students rehearse, and Susie ends up having some sick dance moves, impressing the head of the school, Madame Blanc, played by the amazing Tilda Swinton. Unfortunately for Olga, Susie's sick moves are directly tied with her body's movements, disfiguring and disjointing her body like it's a crumpled up piece of paper. Can you imagine that the reason why you died was because some person was doing like a Fortnite dance and it fucking killed you? Madame Blanc takes Susie underneath her wing as her protege, and throughout the rest of the film, we uncover the school's true agenda of the occult, with Patricia's psychotherapist, Dr. Klemperer, digging into her disappearance. The psychotherapist was also actually played by Tilda Swinton, who plays like 3 different roles in the movie, which I'm not going to discuss because we'll be treading into spoiler territory. That's some really good makeup effects. The ending of the movie can be a bit weird, but besides that, this is in my opinion an almost perfect movie. It's so tense and dreadful throughout the film, and its body horror of watching these characters be distorted even made me flinch a couple of times. I think that the more realism-based approach actually helps make this film better, and if it went down the more Argento surrealist route, it might not hit as hard as it does. In terms of gore, we're looking at a solid 4 because of the ending, but throughout the rest of the movie, it's actually pretty tame. Jump scares are at a 1, so you also don't have to worry too much about the movie yelling at you. And as of right now, the movie is available on Amazon Prime, so if you have a subscription, go watch it. I think that Amazon was actually the ones that distributed the movie too, so you know, there you go. Unfortunately, the movie bombed at the box office, and the director has stated that any plans for a sequel to the movie are defunct as of right now because of its poor performance. However, whether you enjoy the original, haven't seen it, or want something more updated, this is definitely one of the best remakes ever made in the horror genre, and a movie that you should check out whenever you get the chance. I love it. I think it's great. It's a little bit long, but you know, it's definitely a slow burn. It's so different from Argento's original, but besides that, I like it. It's great. And now for the next movie, we're looking back at the Cronenberg classic, The Fly.
Help me. Please. Help me.
Released in 1986, loosely based on the 1958 film and short story of the same name, this is widely considered to be one of director David Cronenberg's best films. It stars a young and devilishly handsome Jeff Goldblum and Geena Davis, fresh off the heels of the Chevy Chase film Fletch, who would go on to play Barbara in Beetlejuice, released 1 year after The Fly, and eventually play the part of Thelma from Thelma and Loiuse, directed by Ridley Scott. If you're looking for gross out body horror, this ranks up there right along with movies like John Carpenter's The Thing. It's insane how well the effects in this movie are and how intense it can get with its jaw-dropping practical special effects. We follow Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum, during a Meet the Press event for the company funding his work, where he meets a science journalist named Veronica, played by Geena Davis. The two actors would actually go on to marry each other 1 year after the release of this film, after meeting on the set of the movie Transylvania 65000, making The Fly the second film that they would co-star in, with their third being Earth Girls Are Easy, released in 1988, and then unfortunately filing for divorce by the end of 1990. And see, that's what happens when you don't celebrate Jeff Goldblum's birthday. That's just what happens.
It's my birthday!
Wanting to document his brand new invention, Seth brings Veronica back to his place and, oh God, dude, talk about a dump. I'm sorry, but if some dude brings you back to their place and it looks like this, you should probably leave. Oh, okay, never mind. Fuck me right here. He shows her his teleporter, among other things, that can transfer inanimate objects from one place to another. However, transporting live tissue turns out to be ineffective, as he demonstrates by placing a baboon inside of the pod and turning it inside out. Bro, what is wrong with you? Eventually, he's able to teach the computer how to process flesh, because that's how that works. And before you know it, he's cracked the code, and after doing a test on another baboon, because he's just the king of baboons and happens to have an endless supply of them, he decides to test it on himself. Unfortunately, a fly is also curious about the telepods and wants to invest, so he decides to join him, fusing the fly's DNA with his own. And throughout the rest of the movie, we see his body begin to deteriorate as the tissues of his body fuse with the DNA of the fly. Besides the amazing special effects that were done by Chris Wallace, who also created the fuzzy and destructive versions of the furballs and gremlins from 1984, what really makes this movie so great is the story. Goldblum absolutely nails the performance, and watching his body break down along with his character as he fuses with this insect is so disgusting. It's vile, but also something you can't look away from, like my body when it's naked. The movie had 7 different stages of transformations that they used to keep track of the deterioration process. Stage 1 and 2 were his discolored rash-like skin with lesions and sores, along with the fly hair growing out of his body. Stages 3 and 4 were his loss of hair, crooked teeth, and deteriorating skin. Stage 5 had more exaggerated deformities, making him look like a decomposed version of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Kinda like me. Stage 6 was the final formation of the Brundlefly, where his arms and legs were replaced with long fly-like legs. And finally, stage 7 was the injured version of the Brundlefly that you can see in the last moments of the movie. I think that there's also another form that was deleted in the movie of a different version of stage 4 that you can see in the deleted scenes of the DVD. The stage 6 version was fully animatronic with multiple people controlling different parts of the creature, really playing up the strengths of Cronenberg's body horror aesthetic with these dripping, oozing, and gross features, making a sight to behold with some amazing practical effects that you just don't see very often or at all nowadays. And what I mean by that is you just don't see this type of stuff in at least commercial horror films anymore because, you know, computers. But there's a lot of really great independent movies that use some pretty cool practical effects that we'll cover in a different video, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. That sounded like a paid advertisement. For The Fly, when it comes to gore, it's decently high at a solid 3 with some turned inside out animals, and although his transformation doesn't have much blood, I'm going to just bump this up to a 4 just because some of the effects can look a bit stomach churning. Jump scares, I would say it's about the same as the Suspiria remake, as it doesn't really rely on jump scares very much, so we're going to give this one a 1. During the release of this video, the movie is available on HBO Max, where you can see all the hit jive Goldberg moves throughout the movie.
Hit it, get it.
I highly recommend this movie, and if you haven't seen it yet, you're doing yourself a disservice because of how solid it is, or how unsolidly decomposing it is. That was lame. All right, let's go to the next one. Tetsuo the Iron Man. This one is completely out of left field. It's a Japanese horror movie, and it is fucking weird. It is all over the place, strange, and constantly makes you confused because it's almost like a fever dream. It's also in black and white, so if that's something that bothers you, this might not be the best introduction to black and white films, or maybe it is because it's so weird. If you're a David Lynch fan, this will probably be up your alley as it's very different from other movies and borderlines on an experimental piece. This movie's got stop motion, it's got gross body horror transformations, a fast-paced story, and some banging beats to bob your head to.
Bro, I had no idea until I was editing this video. This is literally in the shape of a penis. It is a wiener.
Although in black and white, Tetsuo the Iron Man was released in 1989, well into the modernization of color. It was also the director Shinya Tsukamoto's debut feature film, and with a runtime of 67 minutes, the movie sprints from start of the film as a roller coaster until the very last minute. That sounds like a paid advertisement. So if you have an hour to spend and want some weird Japanese black and white body horror film to be absorbed by your eyeballs, you gotta check this one out. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to explain this movie as broadly as possible because it is... A metal fetishist, whatever that means, tries to implant a metal rod into a self-distributed wound, which quickly becomes infected with maggots. He runs in panic and gets hit by a car, and later this guy, none of these characters have names by the way, they're called like man, woman, woman in glasses, and metal fetishist. Hey, what's the best movie that you've ever been in? I was in this movie called Tetsuo the Iron Man. Oh, okay, did you play Tetsuo? No. I played man. Is there even a character in this movie named Tetsuo? This guy wakes up from these dreams of industrial machinery and sweats profusely like he just ran a marathon, and notices a spike on his face, and when he tries to get rid of it, it spurts out blood. Later, he's at a train station sitting next to this woman who becomes infected with metal and flesh, and I think some like small dude inside of the metal and stuff. Dude, I can't explain it. She chases him and he stabs her, and then later he has a dream about his girlfriend sodomizing him with some type of metal hose, and then feeds her food where she licks this sausage like a wiener. The sight of wiener licking arouses him, making a literal drill form out of his dick, splitting the table as it spins at a rapid speed and his body starts to be taken over by metal. Dude, even when explaining this movie to you guys, I feel like it's not real. I feel like I'm being gaslit. I know it's really strange, but trust me, it's pretty good. It's actually pretty divisive. You're either going to love it or you're gonna hate it. My best suggestion is to go into it knowing it's not a traditional movie and take it in as an experience more than anything else. Otherwise, if you just take the movie literally, you'll just start asking yourself questions like, why is this happening? Why is his penis a drill? Who's this guy? Why is this lady chasing him? Why is everything in fast motion? What is happening? In terms of gore, this is about a 3 as the black and white helps to bring down its visceral images. However, there is a lot of blood inside of it. This is also a movie you should not watch with kids or your grandparents, as there is a lot of psychosexual shit going on in here. Unless that's the relationship you have with your grandparents, and then if that's the case, man, that's strange. For jump scares, you're looking at another 1 here, nothing too crazy, and everything pretty much pays off. Right now, you can watch this movie on the Criterion channel, which if you don't have, I don't blame you, but honestly, I signed up for it like 2 months ago, and it's been a great source to watch foreign and classic films. Tetsuo the Iron Man was filmed over the course of 18 months, and by that time, almost the entire crew had eventually quit the project, leaving mostly just the actors. The whole production was such a nightmare to shoot that Tsukamoto thought of burning the movie's negatives at one point due to how bad the experience was. The director, Shinya Tsukamoto, was also the same actor who played the surprisingly buff character Gigi in Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer. Tetsuo the Iron Man is one really weird genre film, so check it out at your own discretion, but with a runtime of just over an hour, I think it's something that every fan of the horror genre should check out if you know, so then that way you can go up to your next conversation and just be like, yeah, I know Iron Man. But let me tell you about the real Iron Man. Next, we've got another great movie from Cronenberg. I mean, if we're going to be talking about body horror, Cronenberg is basically the king of the subgenre, with almost every movie that he makes revolving around it. I'm really looking forward to Infinity Pool, but I want to wait for the unrated version so that I can see all the peen. I hope that I can see like at least 5 peen inside of that movie. This time, it's the 1983 movie Videodrome. I've been meaning to actually watch this for a while, but it hasn't been available on any of the streaming services I had, so I eventually just decided to rent it on Amazon Prime, and I don't really regret it because it only costed $4, but my god, Videodrome is, oh, this movie's great! A man named Max Wren, played by James Woods, who you might know as the voice actor for Hades in Hercules.
Aren't we forgetting one teensy-weensy but ever so crucial little tiny detail?
Is looking for new content to excite his audience at a small-time television station, and he stumbles upon an illegal broadcast of an underground television network where they broadcast snuff films called Videodrome. Max begins to form a relationship with a radio host named Nikki Brand, who's into some really kinky shit.
What's this, Videodrome?
Torture, murder.
Sounds great.
What does that mean?
I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it turns me on.
Bro, run! You need to run! Being a sadomasochist, she becomes invested in Videodrome and decides to visit the studio so she can appear in one of the episodes. Max begins to hallucinate, blurring the line between reality and fiction as he dives deeper into Videodrome, eventually receiving a gash in his body where people insert a videotape in order to control him. I think. I'm actually not 100% sure. I don't even know where the gash came from. He just split it open and they just started putting stuff in there and just like moving things around. It's really gross. This movie has a lot of weird transformations with the main character's body, like many other Cronenberg movies, and this film brings you into a world that feels like a dreamscape. There's a lot of fusing with metal with these oozing effects, but it's definitely not as intense as The Fly. So if you want something to help you prepare for what to expect in that movie, Videodrome is a pretty good start. After releasing his film Scanners in 1981, Cronenberg became increasingly more popular and actually turned down the chance of directing Return of the Jedi in order to create his own films, one of them being this movie. In terms of gore, this one's actually somewhat tame compared to the other movies in this list, so we're looking at like a 2 stars because some of the transmogrifications in this movie can be a bit disgusting to look at. Like, look at that. God, looks like a pimple, like a really big pimple that I just want to get in there and just break open and see all the pus that comes out. As for jump scares, it's another 0, as I don't believe there's actually a single one throughout the entire movie. This one also plays with sadomasochism and sexualizes it, so it's not very safe for consumption around children or people who enjoy vanilla sex. Maybe your grandparents might like it. Unfortunately, the movie isn't available on any streaming services as of right now, but you can always rent it on Amazon Prime for like $4 if you want to give it a shot. Videodrome was one of the highest budgeted films Cronenberg ever created, but the movie unfortunately bombed at the box office and has steadily gained a cult following throughout the years, citing it as one of his best films that he ever made. If television was meant to rot your brain, Videodrome will rot your body. For the last movie in this recommendation, we have Hellraiser. This is one of my favorite movies of all time and a film that's so hard to talk about because it's just so disgusting to watch. Honestly, I think that this movie would be up there with rewatchable classics like Halloween, but Hellraiser is so graphic that it's hard to stomach from time to time. Where Halloween can feel very comforting, fun, and playful, Hellraiser is uncomfortable, sad, and malicious. This was also Clive Barker's debut feature-length film based on his novella, The Hellbound Heart. I have it, it's right up there, I read it. It's pretty good, I like it. The reason why I got it was because, you know, I like the movie so much, and then I'm also a really big fan of Clive Barker's work, like especially his paintings, and would pick up a copy of Books of Blood, volume 4 through 6 that has The Forbidden in it, which is the short story that Candyman is based on, but it's really hard to find a copy of it since it hasn't been republished for a while. Hellraiser follows a man named Frank who gets a hold of a puzzle box where, if solved, summons gods that will show you the extreme pleasures of the flesh. He lights some candles to get in the mood. In the attic of his house, and summons the beings, but ends up getting skinamarink into another world where he's torn asunder by these beings called Cenobites with their leader Pinhead. A few years later, his brother Larry moves into the same house with his wife Julia, and she ventures up into the attic where she finds the living quarters of Frank, and that's where we learn that she had an affair with him that Larry has yet to find out about. After Larry cuts his hand on a banister, his blood seeps into the floor of the attic that triggers the reanimation of Frank, bringing him back into reality as a fully skinned being that requires more blood and flesh to fully reanimate. Julia finds out about it and, still being in love with Frank, lures men that she meets at various bars and clubs to kill them in the attic and let Frank consume their life force. One of my favorite things about this movie is that I think that they're trying to figure out a tagline for the film. And one of the people inside of their group think tank or whatever the fuck it's called was like, what's the tagline for this movie? What a woman would do for a good fuck. Meanwhile, Larry's daughter Kirsty figures out Frank's plan and attempts to stop it, striking a deal with the Cenobites to find Frank, who had escaped his imprisonment. Dude, I love this movie so much and think it's drastically underappreciated as a movie. Not that it's unpopular. I mean, the Hellraiser franchise is pretty fucking large, but I think that the movie doesn't get as much credit for how good it actually is comparatively to other big name horror titles like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street. Watching a man who's fully skinned can be a bit much for some people, but man does it look good. Even when watching something like Martyrs, the effects in Hellraiser and its sequel have some pretty gnarly fully skinned special effects. Christopher Young composed the soundtrack of the movie, which is just, it is A+. It's so damn good, and its sequel, Hellraiser 2 Hellbound, is also very insane and follows Kirsty and her stepmother Julia, giving a new name to, oh, what are you doing, stepmother? Oh, skinning people alive. Oh, you're one of those people. Oh! There was a remake that came out last year on Hulu, which is pretty cool in its own right. However, I find it so strange that a remake made with modern day technology is somehow less visually visceral than the 1987 version. Where's my skinned people at, bro? What is this? What is this bullshit? I still thought it was a cool movie though. I liked it. In terms of gore, this is a high 5. There are some scenes in here that would make Jesus weep, and so, you know, it's not really made for the faint of heart. Jump scares, this is another fat 1. So again, if you're afraid of jump scares, this one's something you can watch comfortably without being yelled at. Unfortunately, just like Videodrome, there isn't anywhere to watch Hellraiser on any streaming services as of right now, which is a damn shame. It's a damn shame. This movie is an A+ for me. I can't gush about this film enough and think that if you haven't seen it yet, you need to give it a chance because it really sticks with you after a while. The rest of the franchise after the sequel really starts to fall off super hard, but 1 and 2 are fantastic, and even though the second one can reach a little bit too far and sometimes not make much sense, visually the movie is gorgeous to look at. And there you have it. Before the movie even finished, those are some scary movies that will make your skin crawl. The body horror subgenre has a lot of movies underneath its umbrella. Hell, even some Japanese horror can fall into the category with how disjointed their body movements can be. But J-horror is also a subgenre that runs deep into horror that maybe we can explore at a later time. But that is it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching, and if you guys liked it, leave a comment down below telling me what some of your favorite body horror movies are, and maybe we can do another video talking about the subgenre more. Until next time, goodbye.